Have you ever caught yourself scrolling through the episode list of a newly discovered podcast, staring at countless captivating images for different episodes, trying to decide which one you plan on listening to? Kind of like when you would go to the video store and look at the different box art for many different types of movies out there, all trying to decide which one you want to take home for that weekend. You're about to unlock the secret to creating those engaging graphics, an often overlooked option for podcast growth. Episode level podcast artwork can do the work of making your podcast stand out from the crowd on platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you stand out from the crowd, well, that means that your download numbers could skyrocket. But what makes good episode artwork? Well, fortunately, I've got design tips from professional graphic designer Prescott Perez-Fox, who will put your mind at ease, even if you aren't a graphic designer. And what about text specs? What about episode artwork sizing? What about format? Don't worry, I've got the inside scoop and a template on Apple Podcasts requirements for episode artwork, so you won't be left guessing. So grab your notepad and let's get ready to level up our podcast with some seriously awesome episode art. All right, let's start with the basics. Our design expert, Prescott Perez-Fox, emphasizes that you should focus primarily on simplicity and impact when it comes to your episode artwork.
Usually there's one main image and one main piece of text. And if you have too many different images or too many different pieces of text, that, a whole hierarchy of things, that becomes really tough to recognize at a glance. So we have to remember that podcast artwork is a very functional piece of design. It's much more like a road sign. So having one principal image and one principal text is sort of the core elements of it.
So keep it simple and glanceable. Your episode artwork should communicate quickly and clearly. But how can we make sure that our episode artwork communicates our message in the most efficient way possible? Well, that's where design hierarchy comes into play.
So this is how the designers or the authors want the audience to receive the information. And so oftentimes it is just the reading order that people will not necessarily read from top to bottom. They'll read the most prominent thing first and understand it, and then the second most prominent thing, and then the third most prominent thing. And we see that all the time. Like, you could just open your fridge and look at fast moving consumer goods. You'll see M&Ms, and then it says peanut flavor or something like that. So you say the brand is the main one, and then the flavor is the supporting one.
From a design standpoint, how do you use color and contrast to benefit the visible nature of podcast episode artwork?
You need a certain amount of contrast, otherwise people are going to have a hard time reading it. So legibility is paramount, and that usually means white against a dark background. Maybe it could be another bright color like orange or yellow, but against a dark background, or the opposite, that you have a dark color, a brown, a black, a navy, against a light background, white, gray, etc. So that the main piece of text can be read easily.
So when designing your episode artwork, think about what you want your audience to see first, second, and third, and how these elements can pop off the screen through the use of contrast. This could be your show name, episode title, or guest name, depending on that particular episode. And speaking of text, just how much text should be in your episode artwork?
If there's too much text, people just won't read it. So that's the funny thing, is the risk of harm is pretty low. So it's not going to ruin their listening experience, but they just might not care. They might not look at it.
The takeaway, less is more when it comes to text within your episode artwork. Keep in mind that your podcast title is going to do the heavy lifting when it comes to text that actually will be searchable within a podcast app. Your episode artwork should visually work in tandem with your episode title. Outside of these design basics, we can actually dive in deeper into episode artwork that tells a story or conveys a mood.
In terms of story, I think what often happens is you'll see, first of all, if there's a change in content, like a guest, you'll feature the guest. And so the story, the whole premise is that this is the person we're now talking about. That's the biggest change. Maybe it changes in tone as well. So you could have a change in color that reflects whether it's, an anniversary episode where everything is bright and glittery, or is it very serious and minimal and kind of stripped back.
This is where you can get really creative. Use your episode art to convey a mood or reflect the content of each episode. But what if you aren't a designer? Don't worry, I've got you covered. One of the biggest hurdles that some podcasters face is feeling really overwhelmed at the prospect of designing either their episode artwork or their show artwork. But here's the good news. You don't need to be a graphic designer to design eye-catching and audience-engaging episode cover art. There are fantastic tools out there that not only help get over this fear and anxiety, but they can help you design episode artwork really fast. Let's talk about two popular options: Canva and Adobe Express. Canva is a user-friendly design tool that offers a wide range of templates specifically for podcast episode artwork. You can easily customize these templates with your own colors, fonts, and images to match your show's branding. The best part? Many of Canva's features are available for free. Adobe Express is another great option if you don't really feel like cracking open Photoshop. It offers professionally designed templates and an intuitive interface that makes creating episode artwork a breeze, even for beginners. Here's a pro tip. Create a master template for your episode artwork. This master template can include your show's branding elements like fonts, colors, and other elements. And when you have a new episode that comes out, just duplicate the template and make small changes to that episode artwork that reflects the content of the show or a specific guest. Remember what Prescott said about hierarchy and storytelling in design? Well, the best part about these templates is that they have a lot of those visual elements already built in. So you're starting off on a strong foundation of what's visually going to work with your audience from the get-go. Don't be afraid to experiment with these different templates. Change the format, try different colors, try different fonts. The more you play around with these templates, the more comfortable you will become with designing episode artwork that grabs your audience. You actually might be surprised by what you end up creating. Now let's get into technical specifications of episode artwork. This will ensure that your episode artwork looks great across all platforms, but especially Apple Podcasts. Just like with show artwork, your artwork should be square, ideally 3000 by 3000 pixels, or at minimum 1400 by 1400 pixels. Make sure you keep the file size low, under 500 kilobytes is what we recommend, and stick to JPEG or PNG formats. It's important to point out that your episode level artwork should have distinct visual branding that is separate from your show level artwork. Don't just reuse your show level artwork. Get creative. Now, Apple Podcasts in particular has some very special specs when it comes to episode level artwork. To make things easier for you all, I've included a link to their special template that includes their safe zones for their platform. You want to make sure that any text or visual elements stay within these safe zones, as this will ensure that there isn't any UI overlays or cropping that occurs that could disrupt your episode artwork. Also, avoid putting your podcast show artwork in your episode artwork. Now, this may seem counterintuitive, but hear me out. With Apple Podcasts specifically, your show art is already included as an overlay in the UI. So there really isn't any point to adding in your logo. Remember, episode artwork is optional, but it's highly recommended. It appears on devices with iOS 17 or later in various places, including the now playing screen, lock screen, and even in link previews on social media platforms. So there you have it, folks. The secret sauce to creating eye-catching, effective episode artwork for your podcast. Remember, it's all about simplicity, hierarchy, storytelling, and following the technical specs. With these new tools in your podcasting toolkit, you are well on your way to standing out from the crowd. Now, episode artwork is just one piece of the puzzle to a successful podcast. You want to learn more about how to take your podcast to the next level? Do me a favor and check out this video.